The morning sun barely peeped through the dorm room's thin curtains when her world changed forever. There she stood, in the tiny bathroom she shared with her roommate, her hands shaking as she held the pregnancy test. 2 lines. Clear as day. No amount of blinking or rubbing her eyes could make that second line disappear. The old bathroom fan hummed loudly overhead, but it couldn't drown out the thundering of her heart. 20 years old, halfway through her junior year, and now, this. Her mind raced to her mother's voice, a constant echo throughout her childhood. Baby, that education is the one thing nobody can take from you. Not a man, not the system, not anybody. She sank down onto the closed toilet lid, still in her oversized university sweatshirt and sleep shorts. Just yesterday, she'd been stressed about her upcoming marketing midterm. Now that seemed so small compared to the life-changing news in her hands. The pregnancy test felt heavy, like it carried the weight of all her dreams and fears. Her partial scholarship had been her golden ticket out of their small apartment, where she'd grown up watching her mother work double shifts. She was the first in her family to make it to college, carrying the hopes and pride of not just her mother, but her entire community back home. Her phone lay on the bathroom counter, screen dark and innocent. She needed to call her boyfriend, but what would she say? They'd been together since freshman year, both of them working part-time jobs while chasing their degrees. Their plan had been simple: graduate, find good jobs, build a life together. Now everything was happening in reverse. The smell of her roommate's coffee drifted under the bathroom door, making her stomach turn. Or maybe it was the morning sickness she'd been dismissing as stress for the past few weeks. Funny how everything suddenly made sense. The fatigue she'd blamed on late-night study sessions, the way certain foods had started making her queasy during lunch at the campus cafeteria. She stood up slowly, catching her reflection in the mirror. Same brown eyes, same curly hair she'd tied up in a messy bun for bed, but somehow she looked different. Maybe it was the knowledge that she wasn't just herself anymore. There was someone else to think about now. Walking back to her bed, she passed the wall of photos she'd carefully arranged. Pictures of her high school graduation, her mother beaming with pride, her first day on campus. Her Dean's List certificates hung nearby, testament to countless late nights in the library. Now more than ever, she knew she couldn't let any of this go. Opening her planner, filled with highlighted due dates and study group schedules, she started counting weeks and months. If she was right about the timing, she'd be 8 months pregnant during her final semester. The thought made her dizzy, but something inside her was already shifting, like her mother's strength was flowing through her veins. Picking up her phone, she took 3 deep breaths. Her boyfriend would be heading to his morning shift at the campus bookstore right about now. Before she could second-guess herself, she pressed the call button. As the phone rang, she straightened her spine, just like her mother had taught her. Whatever came next, she knew one thing for certain: she wasn't giving up on her degree. Outside her window, students hurried to morning classes, bundled against the chilly autumn air. Life was going on as normal, even though her world had just tilted on its axis. But maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of her dreams. Maybe it was just a different path to the same destination, one that would make her stronger than she ever thought possible. The kitchen was quiet except for the gentle ticking of the old wall clock and her mother's coffee mug hitting the table. They sat across from each other, the morning sunlight casting long shadows across the familiar checkered tablecloth. She'd come home for the weekend to share her news, and now the words hung heavy in the air between them. Maybe you should take a break, her aunt suggested from the doorway, concern etched on her face. Just for a little while, until the baby comes. Her uncle nodded in agreement from his spot by the sink, and even her younger cousin looked up from her cereal with worried eyes. But her mother just sat there, stirring her coffee slowly, the same way she had every morning for the past 20 years. The same way she had when they'd received the college acceptance letter, when they'd figured out how to make the scholarship work, when they'd packed up the old family car for freshman year. Later that afternoon, she spread her course catalog across her childhood bedroom floor. The pink walls, covered in old honor roll certificates and dance recital photos, watched as she mapped out her remaining credits. Her laptop glowed with open tabs, academic calendars, class schedules, and articles about other student mothers who'd made it work. Her boyfriend called while she was still surrounded by papers. He'd been quiet since she'd told him, processing the news in his own way. But now his voice was steady as they talked about doctor's appointments and part-time job schedules. They weren't just college students anymore. They were planning for 3. The next day, she walked into the academic advisor's office with her head held high. The familiar smell of coffee and printer paper filled the small space as she laid out her plan. The advisor's eyebrows rose higher and higher as she explained how she'd front-load her credits, take some classes online, and graduate on time, baby or no baby. It won't be easy, the advisor warned, leaning back in her creaky office chair. Nobody would blame you for taking a semester off. But she thought about her mother, who'd never had the chance to go to college, who'd worked every Christmas, every birthday, every holiday to make sure her daughter could have opportunities she never had. She thought about all the little girls back in her neighborhood who watched her go off to college like she was some kind of superhero. That evening, she sat cross-legged on her dorm room floor, surrounded by sticky notes and calendar printouts. Her roommate brought her tea and sat down beside her, not saying much but showing support just by being there. Together, they color-coded her schedule, marking doctor's appointments in blue and major assignments in red. She started reaching out to professors, crafting careful emails explaining her situation. Most responded with unexpected kindness, offering flexible deadlines and virtual attendance options. One professor even shared that she'd had her first child during her PhD program. These small moments of connection reminded her she wasn't the first to walk this path. The pregnancy calculator on her phone said she'd be 8 months along during finals week. The thought made her stomach flutter, or maybe that was just early pregnancy nausea. Either way, she took a deep breath and kept planning. She researched quiet study spots near the campus health center, looked into childcare options, and joined online communities of student parents. Her mother's words kept coming back to her. Education is something nobody can take from you. Well, she wasn't about to let anyone take it, not even the unexpected twist of becoming a mother herself. Each time doubt crept in, she remembered the pride in her mother's eyes when she'd made the dean's list, the way her little cousins now talked about going to college too. As the sun set outside her dorm window, casting long shadows across her carefully laid plans, she felt something shift inside her. Fear was still there, sure, but something stronger was growing alongside it. Determination. She might not have chosen this timing, but she was choosing what happened next. And she was choosing to show her baby, from the very beginning, that with enough grit and grace, you could turn any obstacle into an opportunity. On her wall, her vision board still hung proudly: graduation cap, future career goals, dreams of graduate school. She didn't take it down. Instead, she simply made space beside it for something new. A tiny pair of baby socks she'd bought that afternoon, tucked right next to her diploma requirements. Both were part of her future now, and she was ready to fight for both. The morning sickness hit hardest during her 8 a.m. statistics class. She'd started sitting near the door, just in case, with crackers hidden in her backpack pocket. Her professor pretended not to notice when she slipped out, which made her grateful in ways she couldn't express. The small kindnesses she was learning sometimes meant everything. As her baby bump grew, she had to get creative with her wardrobe. Her favorite study sweater no longer buttoned, and her backpack straps sat differently across her changing body. One morning, she caught her reflection in the library windows. There was no hiding it anymore. She was a pregnant college student, and the look she got walking across campus told her that everyone knew it. But those looks couldn't stop her from maintaining her 3.4 GPA. If anything, they fueled her. During group projects, she was always the first to volunteer as team leader, organizing everything around her doctor's appointments. Her color-coded planner became her lifeline, with sticky notes poking out from every page. Assignment deadlines in purple, prenatal vitamins in green. The campus coffee shop, once her favorite study spot, now turned her stomach with its strong smells. She found a quiet corner in the undergraduate library instead, near a window where fresh air drifted in. The librarian, an older woman with kind eyes, started keeping deck of tea behind the counter just for her. "My daughter went through the same thing," she'd say with an understanding smile, sliding over a steaming cup. Her boyfriend was working double shifts now, preparing for their future. When they studied together late at night in the student center, he'd rub her swollen feet while quizzing her on business terms. Sometimes, during breaks, they'd look up baby names on their phones, trying to find one that sounded right with both their last names. The pregnancy apps on her phone told her the baby was the size of an avocado, then a mango, then a cantaloupe. Her textbooks grew heavier, and her walks between classes got slower. But her mind was sharper than ever. Maybe it was the responsibility of carrying another life, or maybe it was knowing that every grade she earned now was for both of them. She started recording lectures on her phone, listening to them again during her daily walks around campus, exercise recommended by her doctor. Other students would wave as she passed, headphones in, one hand on her growing belly. Some professors even started posting their notes online before class, a small gesture that made a world of difference on days when morning sickness kept her in bed. Her mother called every evening, asking about her grades and her health in the same breath. "You're carrying two precious things," she'd say, "that baby and that education." Those words became her mantra during late-night study sessions, when her back ached and her eyes burned from reading. The academic advisor, who'd been skeptical at first, now greeted her with genuine smiles during their weekly check-ins. "You're really doing this," she said one day, reviewing her midterm grades with obvious pride. "You're showing everyone it's possible." Not everything was smooth sailing. There were days when she dozed off during lectures, nights when pregnancy insomnia had her reviewing flashcards at 3 a.m. She missed the carefree days of spontaneous study groups and campus events. But every time she felt a flutter of movement during class, it reminded her why she was pushing so hard. Her roommate became her biggest cheerleader, bringing her healthy snacks during study sessions and making sure she took breaks to rest. They'd sit together in their tiny dorm room, textbooks spread around them, talking about the future. Sometimes they'd feel the baby kick during particularly intense study sessions, and they'd joke that they were raising a future valedictorian. As the semester progressed, she developed a new routine. Morning classes, afternoon doctor's appointments, evening study sessions. Her backpack now contained prenatal vitamins alongside her calculator and laptop. She'd learned to balance her laptop on her growing belly while typing papers, finding humor in the way her little one would sometimes kick during particularly challenging assignments. The campus itself seemed to adjust to her presence. Security guards would hold doors open a little longer. Cafeteria staff would save her favorite pregnancy-safe foods, and even the busy college coffee shop started stocking caffeine-free options. It wasn't just her adapting to this new life. Her whole college world was adapting with her, proving that sometimes the most unexpected journeys bring out the best in everyone. "It takes a village," her grandmother always said, and now she was discovering just how true those words were. Her mother, who'd worked at the post office for 20 years, sweet-talked her supervisor into switching to early morning shifts. That way, she explained over Sunday dinner, "I can help with the baby in the afternoons when you have classes." The announcement at the Black Student Union meeting wasn't planned. She'd stood up to discuss the upcoming fundraiser, and suddenly her eyes were filling with tears as the words tumbled out. The room fell quiet for a moment before erupting in a wave of support that nearly knocked her off her feet. These weren't just her classmates anymore. They were becoming her extended family. Within days, the group chat was buzzing with plans for a baby shower. One member's aunt owned a local restaurant and offered to host. Another had a cousin who made custom baby blankets. Someone else's mother worked at a children's store and promised to help with the registry. The love poured in like sunshine after rain. Her boyfriend's schedule became a testament to dedication. He'd wake before dawn for his first job at the campus maintenance department, attend his own classes, then head straight to his evening job at a local grocery store. On his rare breaks, he'd send her pictures of tiny baby shoes he spotted in store windows or links to articles about successful student parents. The study group she'd been part of since freshman year refused to let her pregnancy change anything, except maybe their snack choices and meeting locations. They started gathering in the more comfortable seats of the student center instead of the hard library chairs. Someone always brought her favorite pregnancy-safe treats, and they'd taken to timing their study breaks with her need to walk around and stretch. One particularly memorable evening, they were deep into exam prep when she felt the baby kick particularly hard. Without missing a beat, her study partners turned it into a game. Every correct answer earned them a chance to feel the baby move. Somehow, she scored higher on that practice test than any before. The women from her mother's church surprised her one Sunday with hand-me-down baby essentials, gently used clothes, a sturdy crib, even a rocking chair that had soothed 3 generations of babies. "You focus on those books," the church mothers told her. "We've got everything else covered." Her boyfriend's family stepped up too. His mother, a skilled seamstress, began altering her clothes to fit her changing body, ensuring she could still look professional for class presentations. His sisters took turns driving her to doctor's appointments when campus shuttle schedules didn't align. Even his young cousins got involved, offering to help organize her study materials while practicing their own reading skills. The campus community showed up in unexpected ways. The coffee shop staff learned her new order by heart: chamomile tea with honey, never too hot. The librarian who'd watched her grow from a nervous freshman to a determined mother-to-be kept a special cushion behind the desk for her favorite study spot. Even the campus security guards seemed to keep an extra eye out during her late-night study sessions. Her academic advisor went above and beyond, connecting her with other student parents on campus. These connections became lifelines. They shared tips about which professors were most understanding, which buildings had the best nursing rooms, and how to balance feeding schedules with exam times. Their stories of success gave her hope on harder days. The Black Student Union organized a schedule where someone would always walk with her between classes. It wasn't just about physical support, though carrying her increasingly heavy backpack was helpful. It was about showing up, being present, making sure she never felt alone on this journey. What touched her most were the quiet moments of support. The roommate who'd wake up early to help her tie her shoes when bending became difficult. The classmate who'd share detailed notes on days when pregnancy brain made focusing impossible. The professor who noticed her falling asleep in class and quietly slipped her a gift card to the campus smoothie shop, saying only, "Take care of yourself." These weren't just acts of kindness. They were investments in her future, in her baby's future. Each person who stepped up to help was adding their own thread to the safety net forming beneath her, proving that success rarely comes from solitary effort. It comes from communities coming together, from people believing in you even when the path ahead seems impossible. Finals week was just around the corner when her water broke. The hospital room wasn't part of her study plan, but there she was, propped up in bed with her laptop balanced on the rolling table, typing her final paper between contractions. The night nurse would peek in, shake her head with a mix of amazement and concern, and remind her to breathe. Her mother sat beside her, alternating between timing contractions and helping her proofread it. "Only you would be editing citations while having a baby," she said, pride mixing with worry in her voice. The laptop screen glowed in the dim hospital room, its gentle hum mixing with the steady beep of monitors. Her boyfriend paced the room, caught between excitement about meeting their baby and anxiety about her insistence on finishing her work. The paper's due at midnight, she reminded him through gritted teeth, pausing to breathe through another contraction. The doctors had already started calling her Supermom. They'd never seen someone so determined to multitask during labor. The baby decided to arrive just as she was adding her final paragraph. Her last coherent thought before focusing entirely on bringing new life into the world was hitting the submit button on her paper. The timestamp read 11:52 p.m., 8 minutes to spare. Hours later, as the first light of dawn painted the hospital room in soft pink, she held her daughter for the first time. Tiny fingers, a head full of dark curls, and eyes that seemed to hold all the wisdom in the world. The baby was small but mighty, just like her mama. The nurses joked that she came into the world ready to earn her own degree, given how she'd waited for that final paper to be submitted. Her phone buzzed with messages from professors who'd heard the news. "Take all the time you need," they wrote, but she was already thinking about her remaining finals. The baby slept peacefully against her chest as she one-handedly responded to emails, setting up virtual exam arrangements. Her roommate arrived with her backpack full of study materials and a future graduate, Onesi, she bought weeks ago. They laughed about how the baby had inherited her mother's perfect timing, arriving right after one deadline, but leaving just enough recovery time before the next. The hospital staff grew used to the sight of her studying while nursing. During late-night feedings, she'd prop her phone against the pillow, watching recorded lectures with the volume low. The night nurses started timing their rounds to bring her fresh water and encouragement just when she needed them most. Her boyfriend took paternity leave from both his jobs, camping out in the hospital room with their textbooks spread across every surface. They quizzed each other between diaper changes, finding a new rhythm in the strange mix of new parenthood and final exams. By day 3, she was participating in class discussions via video call, the baby sleeping soundly in a wrap against her chest. Her classmates cooed at the screen, and even the strictest professor softened at the sight of her determination. She might have been in a hospital bed, but her mind was still firmly set on graduation. The day they were discharged, her mother helped her pack up not just baby supplies, but also her study materials. The nurses gathered at the station to say goodbye to their favorite patient, the one who'd shown them what true multitasking looked like. "You're going to do great things," they told her, and for the first time, she really believed it. Back home, she set up a study station next to the bassinet, complete with sticky notes and highlighters. Her daughter seemed to understand the importance of these quiet moments, sleeping most peacefully when lulled by the sound of her mother's voice practicing presentations. The reality of being a new mom in college wasn't exactly what she'd planned. It was harder, yes, but also filled with moments of pure joy she hadn't expected. Like when her daughter would calm instantly at the sound of textbook pages turning, or how she'd stay perfectly quiet during video lectures, but coo happily during breaks. That first week home was a blur of midnight feedings and last-minute assignments, of learning to type with one hand while holding a baby with the other. But every time she looked down at her daughter, she saw more than just a baby. She saw her reason to push harder, reach further, and show the world what a determined mother could do. Spring semester hit differently with a 3-week-old baby. The campus hadn't changed, but everything else had. Her backpack now shared space with a diaper bag, and her study breaks were timed around feeding schedules instead of coffee runs. She'd mastered the art of highlighting textbooks with one hand while cradling her daughter with the other. Gone were the days of spontaneous study sessions. Every minute had to count now. She created a miniature study corner in the nursery, complete with a small desk, flashcards taped to the walls, and a mini fridge stocked with water and healthy snacks. The soft glow of her desk lamp often mixed with the gentle light of the baby monitor during those long night study sessions. Her daughter seemed to have her own academic schedule. She'd sleep peacefully through morning lectures, but demand attention just as her mom reached the crucial parts of assignments. Yet somehow, this tiny human made her more efficient than ever. Amazing how quickly you can read a chapter when you know you've got exactly 20 minutes until the next feeding. The professors who'd been supportive during her pregnancy now watched in quiet amazement as she navigated motherhood and academics. During video lectures, she'd keep her camera on, proudly showing her daughter snuggled in a wrap carrier. Some days, the baby's soft coos provided unexpected commentary during class discussions, bringing smiles to everyone's faces. Her mother, true to her word, would arrive after her postal route, still in her uniform, ready to take the baby so her daughter could focus on studying. These moments were precious, watching her mother sing old lullabies while she tackled complex problems, knowing that 3 generations of strong women were in one room, each fighting for a better tomorrow. Learning to breastfeed while reviewing class notes became her new superpower. She'd prop her textbook on a nursing pillow, somehow managing to type with her free hand. Her boyfriend would come home from his evening shift to find them like this, mother and daughter both learning in their own ways. The hardest days were when nothing seemed to align. When the baby had colic the same night a major paper was due. When doctor's appointments clashed with important lectures. When she was running on 2 hours of sleep, but still had to present in front of the class. These were the moments when quitting felt like the easiest choice. But then her daughter would grip her finger while she was reading or smile in her sleep as she worked on assignments, and suddenly the late nights felt worth it. Every A grade wasn't just her own achievement anymore. It was a promise to her daughter that dreams don't have to end when life throws you a curveball. Her study group adapted to their newest member. They'd meet in her small apartment now, speaking in hushed tones during baby's naps. Someone always brought healthy snacks, and they'd take turns holding the baby so she could eat or stretch. These friends weren't just classmates anymore. They were becoming her daughter's honorary aunts and uncles. The campus daycare offered limited spots, but the director had been moved by her determination. "We'll make it work," she'd said, and somehow they did. Those precious hours of childcare became her most productive time, though she missed her daughter's weight against her chest as she sat in the library. Each evening became a careful dance of dinner, bath time, study time, and stolen moments of sleep. She learned to record herself reading textbook chapters aloud during feeding sessions, playing them back while doing household chores. Her boyfriend worked evening shifts, so they'd pass the baby back and forth like a precious relay baton, each taking turns with parenting and studying. Some nights, exhaustion hit hard. She'd find herself crying over calculus problems at 3 a.m., her daughter finally asleep in the bassinet beside her desk. But then she'd look at the photo of her mom at her high school graduation, the pride in her eyes, the hope for her future, and she'd wipe her tears and keep going. Her tiny apartment became a testament to this dual life. Baby bottles next to coffee cups, textbooks stacked beside bedtime stories, laptop sharing space with burnt cloths. But in this chaos, she was building something beautiful, showing her daughter firsthand that with enough determination, you could rewrite any story, reshape any dream. Help sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. She discovered this truth one rainy morning when her babysitter called in sick just before her statistics final. Standing in the hallway, fighting back tears with her daughter fussing in her arms, she nearly jumped when a deep voice spoke behind her. "Bring her in," her professor said simply, eyes kind behind his wire-rimmed glasses. This was the same professor known for his strict classroom policies, yet there he was, holding the door open for her. Throughout the exam, he walked around the room gently rocking her daughter, who seemed fascinated by his body. The campus security guard. A grandfather of 3, she learned, started saving her usual parking spot near the building entrance. "Makes it easier with the little one," he'd say with a warm smile, waving them through each morning. Those extra saved minutes meant everything when juggling a baby carrier, diaper bag, and backpack full of books. Even the department secretary, who'd worked at the university for 30 years, became an unexpected ally. She kept a pack of diapers in her desk drawer, just in case, and never minded when the baby needed a quick change between classes. "My office is always open," she'd say, making silly faces at the baby while her mom rushed to submit assignments. The student cafe staff learned her new routine too. They'd have her usual order: chamomile tea and a protein bar, ready before she even reached the counter. On particularly rough mornings, they'd add an extra shot of espresso to her boyfriend's coffee, understanding the exhaustion in his eyes from night shifts and early classes. Her favorite study spot in a library transformed into an unofficial baby-friendly zone. Other students would quietly coo at her daughter, who seemed to enjoy the hushed atmosphere and soft lighting. The librarian, initially concerned about potential disruptions, became one of their biggest supporters, often sharing tips from raising her own children while in graduate school. One particularly memorable day, her daughter was especially fussy during a crucial group project meeting. Without missing a beat, her classmates turned it into a game, taking turns entertaining the baby while others presented their parts. They discovered that her daughter had a special laugh reserved for economic graphs, which became their running joke. The cleaning staff in her building started timing their rounds with her late-night study sessions, providing quiet company during those lonely hours. One custodian, a mother herself, would sometimes share stories of raising her own children while working full-time, her wisdom offering comfort during overwhelming moments. Her academic advisor's office became a safe haven. During their weekly check-ins, she'd spread out her schedule on the desk, babies sleeping soundly in her carrier, as they worked out solutions to overlapping commitments. "There's always a way," the advisor would say, helping her find paths she hadn't seen before. The campus health center nurses remembered her from her pregnancy and always made time for quick questions about the baby, slipping her extra vitamin samples and practical advice along with genuine encouragement about her studies. They celebrated each milestone, both academic and developmental, with genuine joy. A young professor, who had recently returned from her own maternity leave, became an informal mentor. She'd leave her office door open during lunch, creating a quiet space where questions about developmental psychology could mix with discussions about sleep training. These conversations helped bridge the gap between textbook theory and real-life motherhood. The IT department staff, after finding her trying to type while holding her daughter one day, rigged up a special stand for her laptop in the computer lab. This small modification meant she could keep her daughter close while working on assignments, proving that sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest difference. Even the campus tour groups became part of their support system. Student guides would point out their usual study spot, using them as an example of the university's commitment to supporting all types of students. Her daughter would wave from her carrier, becoming an unofficial mascot for non-traditional students everywhere. These weren't just random acts of kindness. They were threads in a larger tapestry of support, each person contributing in their own way to her success. Every held door, every understanding smile, every moment of grace when the baby fussed during a lecture, they all added up to something bigger than themselves. The final push toward graduation felt like running a marathon while juggling. Her senior thesis deadline loomed ahead, while her baby was going through sleep training. The irony wasn't lost on her. Both mother and daughter learning new patterns at the same time, both fighting their own battles with sleep. Late-night research sessions became their special time. She'd set up camp in the living room, laptop glowing softly, her daughter finally asleep in the portable crib nearby. The quiet hours between midnight and dawn became sacred, just her research papers, and the gentle sound of her baby's breathing. Her thesis topic, First-Generation Student Success Factors, wasn't just academic anymore. Every word she typed was lived experience. Every statistic had a face, every conclusion drawn from real life. She interviewed other student parents, gathering their stories, weaving their struggles and triumphs into her research. Then disaster struck. 3 days before her first draft was due, her laptop crashed. Years of notes, months of writing, countless hours of work, all seemingly lost in an instant. She sat on her floor, cradling her sleeping daughter, trying to muffle her sobs so she wouldn't wake the baby. It felt like the universe was testing her one last time. But she hadn't come this far to give up now. While her boyfriend watched their daughter, She spent hours at the campus its center. The tech support team worked magic, recovering most of her files. What couldn't be saved, she rewrote from memory, fueled by determination and countless cups of tea. She turned down the extension her professor offered. If I'm going to do this, she told herself, I'm going to do it right. The next 48 hours became a blur of typing, editing, and power naps. Her mother took the baby for those 2 days, understanding that sometimes the greatest act of love is giving someone space to fight their own battles. Her tiny apartment became a command center. Sticky notes covered every surface, color-coded index cards created paths between rooms, and her research books formed towers on every flat surface. She worked through feedings, typed while rocking the baby, and learned to proofread while pacing the floor with a fussy infant. The thesis wasn't just about academic achievement anymore. It was about proving something to herself, to her daughter, to every person who'd ever doubted that a young mom could succeed in college. Each paragraph felt like a testament to perseverance, each citation a brick in the foundation of her daughter's future. Her boyfriend would come home from his late shift to find her asleep at her desk, their daughter peaceful in her carrier. He'd gently wake her, take the baby, and remind her to stretch, to eat, to breathe. These small moments of care kept her going when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. The research librarian, who'd helped her throughout the semester, stayed late one evening, just to help her finalize her bibliography. They sat together in the quiet library, the baby sleeping nearby, meticulously checking each reference. This isn't just a paper, the librarian told her. This is history in the making. As she wrote about support systems and success factors, she realized she was living her research. Every person who'd helped along the way, from professors to custodians, classmates to cafeteria workers, was proof that success rarely comes from solitary effort. It comes from communities coming together, from people believing in you even when the path seems impossible. The night before submission, she sat in her rocking chair, her daughter asleep on her chest, reading her conclusion aloud one last time. The words blurred with happy tears as she realized she wasn't just writing about achievement. She was writing about love, determination, and the power of refusing to give up on your dreams. Her thesis became more than an academic requirement. It became a love letter to her daughter, a thank you note to her supporters, and a beacon of hope for other student parents. Every page carried the weight of late nights, the echo of lullabies, and the promise of a better tomorrow. Graduation morning dawned bright and clear. She stood in front of her mirror, carefully adjusting her cap, the tassel dancing in the early morning light. Her graduation gown flowed perfectly, hiding the baby carrier underneath where her 6-month-old daughter slept peacefully, wearing a matching black onesie. Her mother appeared in the doorway, already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Look at my babies," she whispered, watching her daughter and granddaughter in the mirror. 3 generations of dreams were coming true today. Her mother's hope for her daughter's education, her own determination to finish school, and her baby girl's future already brightened by her mama's persistence. The bathroom counter told the story of their morning. Baby wipes next to makeup, the graduation cap temporarily serving as a teething toy, and her honor cords carefully kept out of grabbing distance. She practiced carrying her daughter in the gown for weeks, making sure they could both be comfortable during the ceremony. Her boyfriend arrived early, proudly wearing the tie they'd picked out together. His eyes welled up when he saw them, his 2 favorite people dressed in matching black. He'd worked double shifts for months to help make this day possible, and now it was finally here. He couldn't stop taking pictures, capturing every moment. The drive to campus felt different. Streets she'd walked countless times, carrying textbooks and pushing through exhaustion, now seemed to glow with possibility. Her daughter woke up as they parked, cooing happily as if she knew this was a special day. The campus security guard who'd saved her parking spot all semester had decorated her usual space with a small "Congratulations" sign. In the graduation lineup area, her classmates gathered around, taking turns peeking at the baby, who was now wide awake and fascinated by all the moving tassels. The dean stopped by, smiling broadly at the sight of the youngest graduation attendee. "Now this," he said, "is what we mean by the future of education." As the ceremony began, she felt her daughter's warm weight against her chest, a constant reminder of why she pushed so hard. The baby stayed remarkably quiet, almost as if she understood the solemnity of the moment. When her name was called, the crowd's cheers were mixed with happy baby giggles, the perfect soundtrack to her walk across the stage. The university president's eyes widened with surprise and delight as she approached with her visible passenger. He paused the usual quick handshake, instead taking an extra moment to congratulate both mother and daughter. The photographer captured the moment perfectly, her reaching for her diploma with one hand, her other hand supporting her daughter, both of them beaming. After the ceremony, a photo of her went viral. She was sitting on the campus lawn, still in her cap and gown, breastfeeding her daughter while reading her graduation program. It wasn't staged or planned. It was just a mama taking care of her baby while savoring her achievement. The image sparked conversations nationwide about student parents and educational access. Her mother hosted a small graduation party at their house, where the postal workers who'd supported her journey showed up in force. Her professors stopped by too, no longer as instructors, but as proud witnesses to her success. Her daughter was passed around like a symbol of hope, gathering blessings and well wishes from everyone who'd helped along the way. Later that evening, she sat in the quiet nursery, still wearing her cap and tassel. Her diploma lay across her lap as she rocked her sleeping daughter. The wall ahead of them displayed both her degree and the viral photo, framed side by side, symbols of a journey that had changed not just their lives, but had inspired others to believe in their own possibilities. Her story spread beyond their community, reaching other student parents who saw themselves in her journey. She started receiving messages from young mothers across the country, all saying the same thing: "Because of you, I believe I can do it too." Her graduation wasn't just a personal victory. It had become a beacon of hope for others facing similar challenges. That night, as she put her daughter to bed, she whispered a promise that would guide their future. "Baby girl, you'll never have to wonder if dreams are possible. You watched your mama prove they are, one class at a time."